You've tracked every habit, you've hacked your morning routine, and you've probably optimized your calendar down to the minute. Congratulations, you've turned self-improvement into a full-time job, except you're not getting paid for it. My name is Ryan Soave, and I'm a trauma and addiction therapist with over 10,000 hours of therapy experience. Let's talk about an addiction that no one wants to admit: optimization. This is not a video to tell you that all health optimization is bad or harmful. That is far from the truth. There are many ways in which it can be helpful. But like many things, it's a behavior that can mimic addiction more than you think. Process or behavioral addictions can impact the brain and the neurobiology in similar ways to alcoholism or drug addiction. And with any process or behavioral addiction, much like alcohol addiction, the question becomes, do you have it or does it have you? Is it something that is adding to your life, or are there aspects in which it's taking away or even harming yourself or others? So if that protocol that once felt empowering now feels like a prison, or you find yourself compelled to check in on your metrics versus choosing, or maybe you find that you're checking the app more than you're checking in with yourself, maybe it's moved into the realm of a behavioral addiction that might be causing you more harm than the good that it's doing. Behavioral addictions involve the same neuroadaptations as substance use disorders. This can include impaired reward sensitivity, enhanced stress responsiveness, and compromised self-regulation. In this way, your brain may not be able to distinguish between optimizing and using drugs. If you're someone who is really into health optimization, what are you using it for? Are you choosing it, or is it choosing you? So if you find that it's choosing you and the optimization is causing harm to yourself or others, it's not really optimization anymore. It's a compulsion. And if you're only optimizing your physical health while your relationships, your presence, and your humanity erode, are you really optimizing? I find with some people that the optimization doesn't control or manage anxiety. In fact, it can feed it. That they might feel shame or guilt for skipping a day, or even feel bad because their metrics aren't reaching the number that they would like them. Like many other things, it can benefit you in moderation, but when it begins to control your life, then it becomes problematic. One study showed that 14% of people who use a sleep tracker develop orthosomnia, which is a disorder that the pursuit of perfect sleep actually causes the person not to sleep. That this idea that they're not getting great sleep can actually impact the quality of their sleep or even the amount of it. And so this thing that you thought was healthy and going to improve your sleep can actually impact it in a very negative way, and that can have other impacts on the rest of your life. I remember reading one of Yuval Noah Harari's books, and this was maybe 10 years ago, and I'm going to paraphrase. He was talking about the AI revolution as he saw it coming, and this was long before what we're seeing today with ChatGPT and all of the other AI tools. But he was saying that artificial intelligence would be very beneficial when it came to our medical care. That at some point he was professing that everybody would have an AI doctor, and we'd be able to track our biomarkers and understand symptoms and even catch diseases and other illnesses long before they became problematic. And in this way, it could greatly benefit humanity. But there was another side to this, that when we're tracking everything all the time, in some ways that would make you sick all the time. That there would never be this perfect levels of our biomarkers that would make us optimally healthy. That there would always be something to improve. And that in itself could cause stress and anxiety. His argument wasn't that we never have these AI doctors, it was how do we put these controls around them in a way that it became something and stayed something that could benefit our lives rather than taking from it. When my daughter was born, I was super pumped because I found this tracker that she could wear. It was a sock. I'm not going to name the name brand, but it was a sock that we put on her foot, and it would track her sleep, her oxygen levels. I was like, I thought I was going to be the greatest dad. I'm on the cutting edge, and I was super excited to use it. And so we have this infant, and she's wearing this sock in her bed, and I'd be laying in bed, and the app was there, and an alarm or a notification would go off. And this would happen over time. It made it look like she wasn't sleeping or breathing. And I would get up and sprint to the room, sure she was blue, and I'm gonna have to call the ambulance. And I was terrified. And I'd get into the room and invariably she'd have kicked the sock off, or we found out that the Bluetooth wasn't working correctly. And she was just laying there sleeping peacefully, or even maybe rolling around and smiling at me. That this level of tracking was not beneficial for me. I actually sent this back. I'm not great at sending things back once I buy them. This thing I absolutely did. Not because it's a problem in itself, but I was not organized in a way that this was going to be helpful for me, or my daughter, or my wife, who I'd wake up screaming, saying there was an emergency when there wasn't. And I see this with clients that I have that, will come to me and maybe they're very physically fit. They're tracking things all the time, but they'll get to a day where they miss a day and they'll experience panic because of it. Or, they tell me that they woke up in the morning and they felt great, and then they looked at the quality and the amount of sleep they got, and it was nowhere near what would be optimal, and they actually started feeling tired or down or reactive. But I found that when some of these folks are tracking like this and trying to optimize their physical health, that they can be steamrolling over some of the other challenges that they're having, deeper psychological issues, or things that maybe they don't want to face in relationships, or trauma that's still holding them back. And in this way, they're not optimizing it. They're white knuckling it with better branding, as if reaching this perfect number will make everything else okay. Again, if someone's health is optimized, that can be very beneficial for them. This is not for the people that are able to look at these numbers and then, take them in and make decisions based on the trends that they're experiencing. These are people that are seeing numbers in real time and reacting to them moment by moment. And this causes a level of anxiety and stress that adds to the problems that they're already having, adds to the challenges and stress that they're experiencing in their life. And this thing that they were sure was helping them becomes one of their biggest problems, and very much like an addiction. If you find yourself like this, ask, are you building capacity, or are you just building a more expensive cage? And this isn't just with physical health. A kind of ROI mindset is almost erasing humanity. When every moment has to be optimized or have a return on investment, or every moment needs to fit within this budget, and we need to calendar everything in a way that there's no room for any error, then things like rest can seem wasteful. Things like the messiness of relationships or the joy of parenting, when you're not really doing anything but being with your kids, can be in conflict with this idea of what optimization is. Creativity can fall away. One of the great parts of being a human is that we can be vulnerable, and we can be in these states of ultimate, creativity. And when everything is optimized and must have a meaning, then it's all kind of fixed. We almost set the direction in a fixed way of which we're going. And that doesn't allow for us to roll with the punches and to really enjoy life. That this optimization in this way for these people can become a killer of joy. Gen Z is probably the most wellness-oriented generation there's ever been. They spend far more money than any other generation on wellness and optimization. Yet they have some of the highest levels of mental health conditions, some of the worst outcomes when it comes to well-being in life. Something like 46% have a diagnosable mental health disorder, and 47% say that they often feel anxious. I'm not naive enough to think that this is only in relation to health optimization, but there isn't necessarily a direct line between physical health and overall well-being. Physical health is an extremely important piece of it. That our physical fitness, our nutrition, and our ability to sleep are baselines that are so important. They're just not the whole picture. And if we're focused solely on those, or focused on them in a way that is so intense, it can cause problems in the other area, and actually can lead to stress that can have longer lasting impacts on those areas that we're actually trying to optimize. I've had the great fortune in my career to work with a lot of people, men specifically, who are at the top of their game. They're physically fit, they're successful financially, they look like they have it all together. They're able to run companies and build things. Yet when they come to me, they almost seem spiritually bankrupt. They'll describe themselves as broken. They're not able to keep a relationship together or be happy in a relationship, or they have a very difficult time being a successful parent or being with the kind of the messiness that comes along with having children. When we peel that back, we find that they're really good in transactional relationships, that they can handle almost any stress at work. But when they go home and they don't get the response from their wife that they want, or their kids act in a certain way, they almost can't handle it. When we look deeper into that, we find that their history, the trauma that they experience, set them up to be really good in these transactional relationships. And it's not only their history and trauma, it's kind of the way society is, that these men need to go out and perform, and this is what success looks like. And if you look like this or seem like this other person, then you may be successful. If your bank account reads this, then you're okay. And those aren't the markers that are going to define someone's overall happiness. You can be the ultimate physical specimen and be empty on the inside. And I can't stress enough, this is not an argument about keeping yourself extremely fit and paying attention to those things. But it's about, if we're going to optimize, let's optimize everything. And that can start with not looking at these micro markers that happen on a minute-to-minute or day-by-day basis, looking at trends over time and responding to them rather than reacting to them. That we can't be perfect in every area all the time. That becomes an extremely heavy weight to carry. Because even if you don't have some of these other stressors and kids and a spouse or a business that you built, and you do have the time to spend hours a day on your physical fitness, there is going to be a time that you get sick. There is going to be a time that something happens that you can't do it. And the measure of your well-being is going to show up when you're able to relax in those times that, kind of take you off course. Or if you can't work out or track for a day or two, do you start to fall apart? Again, going back to that question, do you have it or does it have you? So if you're someone who falls into this category, know that healing isn't passive. It requires participation. And your body doesn't always need a tracker. It needs attention. And some of this attention that we're going to give it is more in the subjective nature. What are you actually experiencing in that moment? Not what does a number say, but who are you in relation to those numbers? In this way, the numbers may be helpful because you can look at them and understand what might be coming up because of them. But once it's up, it's not a matter of just bowling over it and trying to change it. We want to be able to build a distress tolerance, to be able to experience the difficult times in life, to be able to experience stressors, to be able to be going in one direction and life happens and be able to respond to it. And nervous system regulation doesn't happen through tracking. Some forms of tracking may show us where our nervous system is out of regulation, but it's through experiencing and active participation that we're going to be able to regulate our nervous system. It's not just about when we find ourselves in a stress state, about relaxing or coming down from it. When we're in a stress state, it activates our sympathetic nervous system, what controls fight or flight. When we're in that state and we determine that there's not actually a stressor that we need to fight or flee from, that this is just something that's uncomfortable or that we need to move through, it's not about deactivating the sympathetic nervous system. It's about activating the parasympathetic nervous system, activating the relaxation response, activating our vagus nerve, which controls that relaxation response. And we can do that through forms of movement, breath, even connecting with others, that it requires this active participation. If we're using numbers to see where we're out of sorts, it's not just about trying to move through and create better numbers. We have to actively participate that in a way that will regulate our nervous system and allow us to be able to experience stress. A regulated nervous system is not about never experiencing stress. It's about being able to experience stress and make choices based on our commitments and the direction that we want to go, not just on getting out of some state that we don't like. You may have heard me say over and over again that I think one of our biggest problems as human beings is we confuse discomfort with threat, and then we react to discomfort as if it's threat. And if we're reacting to discomfort as if it's threat, then we'll confuse relief with safety, and we'll go after almost anything to find relief. If only I can get my sleep number to the perfect level. If only my HRV is at this number. If only my resting heart rate is here. And all of those things might be helpful. But if we're saying that's what we're gonna need to get to in order to be okay and to have this state of well-being, we're just fooling ourselves. It's a component of it. It's not the whole picture. I've come across so many people who will spend thousands of dollars on devices and workshops and programs and so much time trying to get all of their health metrics just right. And many of them have not spent any time in therapy or coaching or even just quiet time discovering who they are. They become so attached in this way to what they are and what they're producing without knowing who they are. And it's said that an unexamined life is one that's not really worth living. Not what are the results that I'm producing, but who am I in relation to those? And then when I can start to discover who I am and the ways that I'm being in the world, then I can start also optimizing those areas. And I am using the word optimizing, I do realize that, but we can start looking at the whole picture, a holistic way of healing and being in the world, not just in these specific areas that we can use to compare ourselves to others. There's a real subjective nature to the beauty of life, and it is so important to slow down, have difficult conversations with ourselves, with those around us, to really understand how I'm showing up, what I'm showing up as, and how I'm being in the world. This is a really humble way to live. In one of the pieces of literature in Alcoholics Anonymous, the founder, Bill Wilson, gives a definition of humility that I love. And it goes something like this: an honest recognition of who and what we become, followed by a deep desire to be who we can be. We want to be able to go after big goals in life. But in order to do that, we have to know who and where we are and really be honest about it. And the numbers that we're going to get from our trackers and devices aren't going to give us that whole picture. Again, it may give us part of it. Anytime that I'm working with someone who having symptoms of a mental health disorder, I also want them to get checked out medically. There may be something going on in the way that physically causing them to have the symptoms of depression. And while we're doing work around their mental state, I also want them to be able to get, their physical state in order. But it's not about this frantic, I need to reach this certain number in order to be okay. It's a matter of looking at all of you. Again, a holistic view of the self. And for most of the people I work with, they don't need another system. They don't need another tracker. They don't need another protocol, although protocols are very helpful. What they really need is the ability to be able to build a distress tolerance, to be able to experience discomfort in the difficult times in life. In short, to be able to learn how to feel bad. That's a lot of the work that I do with people. It's not about helping them feel good. It's about learning how to feel bad, because it's in that feeling bad that we get into reaction and end up doing the things that either immediately or over time are not helpful to us or those that we love. And when we can do that and have that capacity, in that way, we can use protocols and we can use these metrics and know which ones are right for us, but to use them to achieve a state of well-being. Not to let them kind of dictate to us where we're going wrong and to drive us to go into reactive states and constantly be choosing new pathways. And so emotional capacity is not built by fixing discomfort. It's built by facing it. In order to face it, we need to look at all of the things that we use to avoid feeling that discomfort. And health optimization can be one of those things. Again, it's not bad. It can be very helpful. Not an argument for people to stop doing that completely. It's an argument to be honest with yourself and look at another aspect of your life where it might be using you versus you using it. Simple as that. So optimize your health, but don't make it your higher power. The moment your morning routine becomes more important than your kid asking a question, you've lost the plot. Real transformation comes from the imperfect work of being human, one breath at a time. If you've enjoyed this video or it's helped you in any way, please subscribe and share with your friends or loved ones. I'll see you in the next one.